hello, you lovely people. It's the two of us. We're here this evening at the bar by ourselves, just enjoying a quiet drink.
As you do.
Yeah, Sunday evening's a pretty good time for that kind of thing. And I want to say, man, we had a hell of a stream on Thursday night. That was over 15,000 people we had watching us live at peak, which is, I think, a record for the open bar. So, nice one. Thank you, guys.
It was good stuff.
That's
fun stuff.
That's the sheer amount of enthusiasm there is for things like Snow White and Robin Hood. Sorry,
firmly still in the era of look what they did now.
Yeah, it's amazing as well. Like even after all these years, I feel like there's still a lot of how can I put this heat around things like Captain Marvel, just based on the little clips that I uploaded to my second channel. Like there were a lot of people interested in what we had to say about about that show's or that movie's prospects. What can you do, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Well, we've got a whole bunch of super chats that we didn't get to on the night, so I'd say we throw ourselves into it and see if we can answer them for people. The first one is from Alan Reeves, who says, "What's your thoughts on modern Marvel?" Well, our thoughts.
It just makes me think like, oh, they must be new. Like, what's our thoughts on modern Marvel?
Yeah. If I had to sum it up, right, I would say it's a bit of an empty shell of a franchise. Like on the outside, it still seems to be kind of big. You know, they're unlike Star Wars, like they're putting out movies regularly, and some of them are making quite a lot of money. 800 million for Guardians 3. It's still pretty respectable. So you've got all the TV shows, you've got the movies. It seems from the outside that it's still doing quite well, but there's nothing to back it up. There's nothing within it. The fan base, the enthusiasm for these films is just dead now. The enthusiasm for the TV shows is dead, and it's just empty now. There's just no real attachment to it. No one seems that invested in any of it. And
even the people who are like paid to be invested in it seem to be running out of things to say.
Yeah. And like when the media has turned against your franchise and they're openly saying like, no, there's superhero fatigue, you know, how are you going to correct all these problems? How are you going to course correct? Man, if they're saying that, that's got to be bad.
You know, like I saw a tweet celebrating Loki season 2 episode 1 as being this great thing, returned to form much better than the other TV shows. There's a reason there's a season 2 for this and not anything else, blah blah blah. That same person after episodes 2 and 3 was like, I don't know, man, this show is just not doing it for me. It's like, oh no. Even the half-life, you know, it's getting shorter and shorter. It's so sad.
I just the more I think about it, the more I'm coming to the conclusion I'm just not going to watch Loki. I just don't care enough to even invest my time in it.
3 episodes of it, and by episode 3, it is absolutely a fucking painful drag. You best have Subway Surfers on your phone if you're going to do it.
Yeah, it's not worth it anymore. I guess that's where you get to the real death of a franchise, isn't it? You move beyond anger or irritation that it's not as good as it used to be to just apathy, and you're just, I just don't care anymore.
That's when you're in serious trouble.
Oh yeah. Fung Meat says, "Hi, Drinker and panel. First super chat and long-time subscriber. Thank you. Question for all of you: do you have a favorite movie composer? Awesome content from Muller, Baggage Claim, Mr. H. Your interview was awesome. Thank you for all that. And favorite composers. I think mine might be James Horner. I always like his stuff.
I think we were asked this before, and I always say the boring John Williams because I feel like it's an objective answer. He's made a bazillion amazing soundtracks and scores that I find undeniable. But then I'll always reference Ramin Djawadi, I think is his name. Guy behind obviously the Game of Thrones theme, and then just a bunch of more modern stuff. He's someone I really like, and Bear McCreary. I really enjoy.
Beat me to it. John Williams obviously can't argue with that either. Pretty incredible stuff. Princess Fiona says nothing will change until they stop blaming fans. I mean, that is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not going to even acknowledge where the problem lies, you're not going to solve it.
I feel like that's a symptom of. Do you notice how they stop being mad at fans when fans enjoy the thing? You don't find many successful and well-liked things where the makers are like, fuck you, fans. They usually shut up pretty quickly when their thing is liked. When it's not liked, they're like, you know what? It's actually the fans' fault. This is all going wrong.
Well, it's tough to get mad at your fan base when your fan base is saying, this is great, we love it.
Yeah.
You know, like, what are you going to get
Do you
mad
remember
at
anyone
there?
saying, like, oh, everyone hates Andor because they're racist? Like, yeah, I don't remember any articles like that. Because nobody really was hating on Andor that way, in the same way that, like, Obi-Wan or even Boba Fett, like, I don't even know what the fucking company line was for Boba Fett.
I try to remember if this has always been the way, you know, because obviously in the current era, we now have social media and like all of these directors, actors, writers, they're much more accessible now and they can just air their grievances immediately on Twitter if they want to. You didn't have that 20, 30, 40 years ago, but did they still lash out at criticism? Or did they just kind of take it on the chin? Was it just expected that, well, you just have to accept if fans don't like certain things?
I mean,
I don't know. I'm trying to remember
you'd
what
hope
it was
that's
like.
something that they're taught at some point by someone else. Like, it's okay to be like, oh, we didn't quite hit it with that one.
Yeah. I remember there was a guy called Rick Berman who used to be in charge of all things Star Trekky, right? And he oversaw Star Trek Enterprise, which was like the last TV show of his era before it got J.J. Abrams and kind of changed into something else. But the finale of Enterprise was famously bad. Like, it was famously poorly received because it was like a kind of flash forward episode that referenced the next generation, and it was almost like making these characters in their final episode like secondary characters to a completely different story, you know. And it was a really bad way of doing it. It's hard to explain unless I go into all the context, but like, that's the general gist. It's like it was all just holographic flashback, essentially, that final episode. That makes one of the characters from the next generation make an important decision in like a random episode of like a halfway through the season. So it's weird as fuck. Anyway, Rick Berman came out a few years after that and just acknowledged, like, yep, that was a terrible idea. I'm really sorry for how we ended that season. It was on me and it was a bad call. And I thought, how fucking mature to have that self-awareness and just acknowledge, yep, you made a bad decision there, and you apologize for it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Very rare. And I guess another thing you need is time in order to let those sorts of... You don't usually get it immediately, right? Partly because it's a really bad idea for trying to promote your thing to be like, this is bad, by the way. Like, people don't usually do that.
I always remember the director for Terminator Dark Fate who made all those comments about like, you know, if you can't handle these new characters, then you're just a bigot. And yeah. And then the movie absolutely died on its arse. He just made some admission like, that probably wasn't the best way to handle it. No kidding.
What a piss take of a movie.
Oh,
poor Terminator. Yeah. Maybe one day, you know.
Yeah.
One day.
What's this? Gary's Beard Crab says, God didn't make Mauler, the Fleems did. He's part of an elite team trained to live off cheap takeout and watch films so bad that they would make Ebert vomit to fight with puns, jibes, and bear-tisms.
Chance that it applied there. That sounds about straightforward, yeah.
Jay Fraser 360 says, Drinker, when will you recommend the last great Star Trek film, Galaxy Quest? It is good, actually. Mauler, have you seen the film? And have either of you seen the 20th anniversary documentary, Never Surrender?
I have not seen that. But yeah, I've seen Galaxy Quest. I love it. It's great.
It's such a well-intentioned film.
Yeah.
You know, it's both a parody and a homage to Star Trek, and it feels like it was done with in really good humor. And
it's a solid story on its own. It's not just you watch it to be like, they're making fun of that. They're making fun of that. That's great. Yeah. But you also actually get characters in there that I think are pretty engaging and fun.
Yeah. I thought Tim Allen was fantastic.
He was, and he said he felt like he was giving it quite a bit of effort. Obviously, Alan Rickman in it is fucking hilarious.
Yep.
If I grab Thaz hammer, what a savings! That line is so funny.
I do, because it kind of like it kind of reflects his own career, like this classically trained stage actor who's just trapped in like shitty roles because of this. Prederi says, Drinker, did you enjoy Veep? Yes, Veep was fantastic. Fantastic dialogue, absolutely razor sharp. Julie Louise-Dreyfus is so underrated as an actress. Like, that role was just like made for her. And yeah, brilliant cast, brilliant dialogue, some genuinely laugh out loud funny moments. So yeah, I recommend Veep to everyone. Dr. Quagsire says, hello gents, Honest Trailers made a vid on Ahsoka. Please can you watch it and hear your reactions? I don't think we can do it right now, but yeah, have you seen the Honest trailer for Ahsoka?
No.
All right. We'll need to give that a watch then. Prederi also says, could they make a character like Malcolm Tucker again? I don't think they could. I think it'd be too offensive. Yeah, like, God, what was his name? The guy who played Doctor Who, Capaldi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely nailed that character. Just his delivery is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua Staley gave us $10, so thank you, man. And Jesus Davila gave us a thumbs up, so thank you. Timmy says, have you guys thought about having Sheev Talks on? He does great content on Disney Star Wars being terrible, except for Andor, which he loves. I'm sure he'd make a great guest.
Maybe. Who knows?
Joshua Staley says, love your content, Drinker. Would you kindly give a shout out for my brother's birthday? He has a YouTube channel covering horror nights and spooky movies. It's called Blood and Guts. Thank you. Well, thank you, man. And I hope your brother has a lovely birthday. Happy birthday to you, man. MJ UK says, if Brie took a break, do you think she could make a comeback in 10 years? I don't think so. And I don't mean that as an insult. I just think that would put her like over 40. And that's not a great time for an actress to be making a comeback. Not unless she's had a really solid body of work behind her. I just don't think she's really got that. Like, how many high-profile movies has she starred in? Not many. That's the answer. I guess.
I have to Google that one.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think we did it the other night, or like on one of the open bars, where it's like, what did she do since Captain Marvel? And it's like one or two really low budget things.
Unicorn Store.
I think that was made before it, actually. I don't know if it was released afterwards, but yeah. And yeah, little cameos in some Marvel projects, but nothing really beyond that. Destoroku says, here's my take on the two Snow White movies. I think they'll both suck. A narcissistic Latina who can't speak Spanish versus Ben Shapiro in a wig. Oof, that's brutal. Yeah, I don't know what the quality is going to be like when they come out, but I don't imagine the Disney one's going to be great. Simon Ho, I tell you what, man, when the trailer eventually comes out, because I know they're terrified to drop it, but they're going to have to eventually, it's going to get slaughtered.
Yes.
You're just like, you're not even going to argue. It's like, yes, definitely.
You know, if you were on their fucking marketing team, what would you do?
I recommend we nuke the entire movie.
I love the idea that you've got all of the footage. They're like, use whatever you want. It's like, we can't use any of it. Not any of it. Not even a fucking frame.
Imagine for a moment, right? You had to do the marketing for the Marvels, and then you're like, you get it done, the movie comes out, and you're like, oh, fucking hell, that was a chore. And then it's like, what's my next project? Snow White. Like, fuck it, I'm out. I quit the entire... Like,
you just pocket the marketing money and you do one interview. You sit in a chair, slouching, looking down. They're like, so what's this movie? And you're like,
stuff.
Movie, I don't know. Don't go see it.
Yeah. Simon Ho says, Brie became single last year, hence showing more skin. Fair enough. Praderi says Rami Malek would have been the best choice for Kang. I mean, he's a good actor.
Maybe,
Give
I
him
don't know.
that. Doesn't have the physicality of Jonathan Majors though. Like that guy's massive.
You do probably want, I guess, Kang's like a time monster. I don't know what physicality we even want for him necessarily, but
I mean, if it was in the hands of smarter writers, you wouldn't need it. But then it's like
yeah,
everything in Marvel has to devolve into basically a fist fight with all the
right.
laser beams and powers getting used and stuff. So, yeah, I guess for their way of doing things, you would need an actor who can do stuff like that. Joe Ralston says, "So now is the time to feel bad for Brie. How can people who jumped on the hate bandwagon for a little while suddenly flip? I personally never hated Brie or Captain Marvel. I just didn't fully like the character adaptation."
The wonders of what not annoying people for a while can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was the reaction at the time, but that was like 4 years ago, where it's like, yeah, she said a whole bunch of dumb things, and so people found her quite irritating and insufferable. But then she's been real quiet for the past few years and not really done anything particularly
Well,
out of
no,
line. So
a lot of her clips back in the day were ones that made her look like an asshole. The clip where she says, I don't know, do they want me back? I think it had a surprising effect of being like, that was surprisingly honest and interesting, kind of.
yeah, I think so. Well,
Like,
it demonstrated awareness, and I don't know. You kind of feel for a person like that. It's like that frustration and that acknowledgement of like, oh, this thing's really harming my career.
well,
And
yeah,
I
you
don't.
look at her IMDb list and you suddenly realize, like, oh shit, that was a mistake. Captain Marvel was a mistake. Because
Yeah,
her contemporaries, who are arguably younger and older or similar aged, like women who are working on their careers, like, you know, she would have gotten in when Scarlett Johansson was exiting. And it's like, wait, where are you going? Isn't this
yeah,
isn't this getting while the getting's good? And Scarlett Johansson's off in like all kinds of movies, still trying to. She's doing stuff, more than likely realizing that she might be cast a hell of a lot less very soon.
yeah,
And yeah, Brie has spent, let's be honest, 5 years of what are very important years in her career, right after winning an Oscar, and that's got to be really fucking annoying at this point for her.
yeah. I think so.
And I find that, yeah, a little bit endearing, somewhat.
Well, I think I said this before as well. Like, there always has to be a way back for people, like an element of like redemption for them. You know, if someone has, even someone like Rachel Zegler, for example, okay, Snow White's probably going to flop, and she could potentially be humbled by that. And if she comes back a couple of years down the line, like, yeah, I was a bit of an asshole back then. I got a bit full of myself. I was kind of young and swept up in the whole fame thing, and like starts producing some solid movies with good performances. It's like, well, okay, you kind of have to like give someone an opportunity to come back. It's a bit unfair to condemn them forever, just
Hmm.
because they did or said a few assholey things a few years earlier. You know, so I think keep an open mind, I suppose. You know, it'll be interesting to see how she handles the fallout of the Marvels, I suppose.
Yeah, because I
Maybe she.
expect stupid quotes are right on the way. I imagine they've already written articles about how people hate women. That's got to have been done.
Oh, most certainly, yeah. I think she's probably praying for the actors' strike to carry on until this movie comes and goes, so she doesn't have to do any press for it, and she can just quietly write it out and then just move on to other things. I can't imagine she will want to do many interviews about it.
We'll see. She could explode, but I think she's. I hate to say this, it sounds so I don't know, vain, but I feel like she's learned her lesson with what happened with Captain Marvel and Endgame, and what's it called, Wrinkle in Time. Like, how about you just swallow the loss and move on?
Sometimes the best way. Apollo 95 says, "Where's Tatiana? It's open bar 69. Damn it. I know. What can I say? She's a bit nervous about being on screen." Levi Ackerman says, "Just got here, wondering if any of you are interested in seeing The Iron Claw." So that's a documentary, isn't it?
I'm not familiar.
Give me a second. Right. Oh, yeah. So it's a wrestling thing. So it's about one of the Von Erich. Yeah, so it centers around the Von Erich family, who were like massive in the wrestling business back in the day, like in the 60s and 70s, I think. Um, Yeah, they had to not only battle inside the ring, but fight the Von Erich curse outside of it. So I think a lot of them met untimely ends, either through like wrestling related injuries and stuff, or other stuff going on outside. But yeah, apparently it's meant to be quite good, kind of tragic and poignant, I suppose, but might be an interesting watch.
Yeah.
Joshua Henderson says, speaking of Brie Larson, Ziggler is way worse. I would agree, actually. If I had to pick who would you rather spend the day with, it would probably be Brie Larson rather than Rachel Ziegler.
See, with Brie Larson, I would hope to get some potential insight out of her. In terms of, I'd be like, how are you feeling now compared to before? And I'd love to ask you, what does she think about the character of Captain Marvel?
Yeah. Well, like an honest answer where it's like off the record.
I guess for the sake of the question, you'd want it to be as they present themselves currently, but I feel like Brie Larson we might be able to get some honest answers out of it, maybe, depending on the questions.
I think when she eventually moves on from Marvel and her NDA and stuff is up, she might be a bit more honest about her experiences there and what she actually thought of it. It would be quite interesting. She was just like, that was the biggest fucking mistake of my career. I never should have played that character.
Yeah, and maybe 10 years from now, when she writes a book, she talks about how taking on Captain Marvel almost destroyed her career.
Yeah. Giant Squid says, hey, Drinker and crew, anyone plan to attend LA Comic-Con this year? I had a bit of a chat with Chris Core about it when I was in Houston. It's in December, I think, so it's a bit of an awkward time of year, and it's a hell of a long way to travel, but I'll see what I can do. Thomas Costigan says, congrats, Scotland, on making the Euros. Love England. Thanks, man. Yeah, we qualified somehow. Like, fucking hell. It's on a wing and a prayer, but, it's always nice to get through. Red 4 says, hail Drinker, as bad as Loki has been, have you seen Tom Hiddleston as Hank Williams? Also, have you seen Star Trek Continues? What did you think? I haven't seen Tom Hiddleston as Hank Williams.
Neither have I.
He's a good actor. I want to see him get better roles than what he's had.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek Continues was the fan-made thing. I think it was Vic Mignogna who was doing it as Captain Kirk. I remember a few of the episodes being pretty damn good. They really got the 1960s aesthetic just down to a T. It was impressive. James Morris says, are any of you attending Fright Fest in London next week? My film, He Never Left, is having its international premiere there. I'm very proud of how it turned out and excited to see what those in the UK think of it. I am not going to be there, I'm afraid, but I hope your film does really well. So congratulations on getting it made. Miranda Sinistra says, Kang is the cinematic representation of a trillion Pop Goes the Weasels. Yeah. Pentipistuli says, part 1, anime recommendation for someone who gets 37 of them every week. Black Lagoon, set during the mid-90s, 4-person group run a smuggling transport operation in Thailand, harbor city of Ronapur, filled with scum and villainy. By the way, the female lead has a tank top, shorts, and dual Berettas. Sign me up in that case. Sounds all right, yeah. Albert Nada Retro says, the next big story should have been Atlantis Attacks or the Evolutionary War. By the way, Daniel Henney should have been cast as Namor. He looks just like him. Fair play. I don't know much about the comic book character, but yeah. I know Gary's mentioned many times how Marvel essentially skipped 60 years of storytelling just to get to the current day crap that nobody liked. So yeah, interesting choice. Stikoyana says, I'll never be able to unsee Kang getting defeated by ants. Yeah,
it's hard to unsee that.
That's not how you build up a villain. Who do you think has been worse served, actually, Kang or Thrawn, in terms of just really disappointing debuts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's like your videos cover. It's just we're having problems on all aspects. It's of course, if they can't write this, that, and the other, it's like, why would you expect any villains to be strong? It's like, yeah. Be nice if they were,
though. Chris Turner says Richard E. Grant should take over as Loki. I agree.
He probably would have made a good Thrawn.
Yeah, it would have, actually, yeah.
Remember when he was just in Rise of Skywalker randomly? It's just like, look, it's him.
Yeah.
He was
Bring it
General Pride, I think, which is a funny name, just because it's like, yeah, I get it.
Bringing a little bit of gravitas there. They were trying to build up a new,
That's all that is. When
Tarkin-like character.
you buy him, so to speak, for a role, you're just like, hopefully you can make up for my writing just by being there.
Joshua Henderson says Kang is not like Thanos. Instead, he's like Ultron. Very true. It's a good way of summing him up, actually. Dr. Mubb says, for the panel, what are your hottest controversial takes on any popular or well-praised piece of media? Apparently, me not liking Killers of the Flower Moon was a bit controversial.
Oh, yeah. I mean, modern stuff. I thought, I don't know if this counts because it's not super new now, but both Guardians 3 and Dead Reckoning, I thought both of them were crap, which was not well received, as an opinion.
Yeah, that's probably mine. I know.
For the record, Mission Impossible Fallout is one of my favorites. I fucking love that movie.
I think everyone just expected because it seemed like the Mission Impossible movies were just going up and up. Like each one was getting better than the previous, and it's like, well, Fallout was excellent. Like, surely this will be even better. Like they've had more time to perfect the formula, and everyone's dialed in terms of characters and stuff. And yeah, it was a bit weird, bit rough. Don't know what happened. Albert Nada Retro says the best scene in all of the MCU is Cap and Peggy dancing. Ulysses had come home to his queen, and his odyssey was over.
Boo. I appreciate it in isolation. I really do, because I actually quite like them together as well. But man, Cap, what are you doing, buddy? You've got so much work to do. You can't just leave everybody for the hot girl. That's not how it works.
I mean, she is really hot, though. Let's weigh this up here.
Listen, I know it may break time and space, but you got to have the hot girl and you got to save the world.
Damn it. So unfair. Surely you could just nip backwards and forwards. Come visit her.
Fuck it, just bring her forward. Be like, come on, Peggy. You got nothing to live for here. Come with me.
Yeah. Do a Scarlet Witch and go into a different multiverse and just grab a Peggy there. Just bring her back. Kidnap her.
Pluck them out of the will between worlds. Why not?
I mean, there's one going spare where she was the new Captain America. Maybe squeeze in 5 minutes with the bottom half of her. I think.
Yeah, why not?
There's all kinds of possibilities. John the Man Good says, this question is for the whole panel. Now that the writer's strike is over, what changes do you expect to see in future shows or movies, if there are any? Because the strikes shed light on many things. I don't expect
in quality, because I expect it to be the same. It's going to be funny in 5 years from now if they say, "Oh, look at this movie! Look how bad it is because of the writer's strike." And then we'll be like, "Movies were about that bad before the writer's strike." I don't even know the difference really.
The writers essentially got everything that they wanted, so it's not like there's any real incentive for them to tighten up and do better because they won. So, well, good luck with it. Peter Hewitt says, any of you hunks going to buy Britney Spears or Jada's new books? No. I don't think so. I'd rather gouge my eyes out with a rusty spoon.
Yeah.
Maybe Britney Spears, actually. If I had to choose one to read, I suppose it would be hers, because I feel like she's led a bit of a tragic life. She kind of lost her mind, didn't she? And then she was put into this weird conservatorship thing where she's not even in charge of her own finances. Bit weird. Whereas Jada just seems like a really shitty person.
Yeah.
Kate C, aka Snake Plush Kitten, says old Loki couldn't continue to exist. He was a misogynist. He even called the Black Widow a mewling quim. Could you imagine that being allowed now?
Nope.
No, couldn't. He wouldn't be allowed to present any threat to her. That word, actually, quim, I had never heard it before. I had to it wasn't until people mentioned it years later where I was like, oh, okay, that's what that means.
It was part of the goal with the writing, the dialogue for the Asgardians was to try and have them appeal to some older English, or even the other inspired languages and stuff, just to try and give them a bit of a sense that they were different than us.
Yeah.
So much for that. Like in the newest episode of Loki, they come across some statues in like the 1800s of Norse gods, and Mobius says, What's the matter? You don't like them?" And then Loki's like, "It's a crass imitation," and it's just like as if the MCU isn't a fucking gross, crass, pathetic attempt at doing the Norse gods. Like, come the fuck on. And it's funny. There's a statue of Balder, and Loki's like, "Why would they have a statue of him? Nobody even remembers him." I was just like, "Why would you have him say that? That doesn't even make sense." Like, you guys forgot about Balder. That's all that happened. Like, what do you? It's so weird.
Yeah. But if the writers forget about him, then, clearly the whole of humanity did.
Yeah.
Stephen Burr says, recently saw trailers for Silent Night and The Beekeeper. Both are vengeance plots where a man ensures those who've wronged the people he cares about get avenged. Since the woke superhero genre is tanking, do you see this as a sign of things to come? I think any genre's got as much chance as succeeding as any other, really. Like the field is open.
Yeah.
And
Could be something we don't expect.
It could be.
Vampires, they're on the rise.
Woo! We've had zombies already back in the 2000s, so I guess they're played out. But werewolves.
I do feel like everything's on the table in terms of like, what if it was like Zombies Round 2? What if it was the Western coming back? It's like, I guess anything could happen. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know what's going to suddenly take off next. But revenge plots are usually pretty solid, like the sort of Death Wish formula. Kilo10 says, the feedback loop Chris is discussing, how much of this is affected by the streaming shift to 6 to 8 episodes of series versus the traditional 20 to 25 episodes per season, and why are they doing that? I think the reason they do that now is just because they're so much more expensive to make. Like, by the time you get to like 6 episodes, that's like the cost of a big budget Hollywood movie. You could argue how efficient they are with like spending their money, but like, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. That's why you just can't afford to do 20 or 25 episodes. That's why I was so surprised that, like, when we found out Daredevil had been canned, that they were going to do like 16 episodes of that.
Yeah.
Fucking what?
Legit, like, crazy hypothetical. If when we had the beginning of Phase 4, they'd released, you found out there was an MCU movie coming out in theaters that's total budget before marketing was $30,000. And that it was primarily focused around one guy in his house, and he was just trying to live his life, and they have like maybe 1 or 2 effect shots, but the whole point is that we watch him live in a day in the MCU, and that there's crazy events happening, and you can kind of grab where he's at in terms of the timeline. Maybe it's like 2012 or something, and he's just got some friends, and someone who at work is complaining about like this issue of trying to get this building sorted out that has like a bunch of apartment stuff in it, but it's going to be taking over some of the greenery of the local town, and that everyone's up in arms because there's apparently a very special tree there, and they're just like talking about shit like that. And by the end of the film, like the house he's in just gets fucking blown up because it's in like some area of one of the finales of one of the MCU. Like, if you knew that was the film that was coming out and it cost that much, would you go see it, or would you be like, this is too goofy?
I probably would, actually, just for the change of pace.
I feel like
if it was well written, because I feel like if they were spending fuck all on making it, they would probably, be willing to take some real chances and do something kind of interesting and different.
I wouldn't be able to resist seeing it. And the crazy part is, I feel like with a marketing budget of fucking something insane, like 50 million, because they are broken people over there. Like they don't know how to spend less than that, the marketing. The film would still probably have to make a profit. I can't see it not making a profit. If it's promoted as an MCU film and then it's like, there wasn't much action in it though, but I still feel like plenty of people go and see it. And, if you make it sufficiently funny, or it has enough insight to say about things, or the guy himself is going through a divorce while his kid is like estranged, he's trying to fix it all up, but then he just dies. And it plays into like the drama events of the next big thing connected to Civil War. I don't know. I was just thinking like, oh, why can't you experiment with stuff that's low risk? Into like, if it doesn't do well, who cares?
This is what I've said before, like partly with MCU and partly just with Hollywood movies in general. Like, you need the return of mid-budget movies where you've got enough money to like do something quite impressive on screen. It's just not like all relying on it. It doesn't like therefore fall into the formula that's just been proven before. But I think if anything, now is the time to really strike out and experiment with the MCU. It's like on decline anyway. You might as well, throw everything at it and try lots of new stuff. Because clearly, like, just rolling out the same tired formula that they're doing isn't working anymore. And spending $300 million plus on your movies is absolute fucking insanity when it's a time of decline. You should be down at the 150 million range, where you've still got a reasonable chance of turning a profit. Like, this is crazy what they're doing now.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, to kind of back up the point you made there, that's essentially what they did with Daredevil on Netflix. It was like set within that world, like a post Avengers New York, where like there'd been like all kinds of destruction and stuff, and people were trying to take advantage of that, like with all kinds of reconstruction contracts and stuff. And that's where Kingpin was situated. So you got low level hero stuff, very much like real regular humans just fighting against other humans in that bigger universe. And it works. It works really well because you're invested in the characters.
Yeah, thanks to the writing and the execution of the show in general, it became like possibly one of their best resources for TV. And now they're fucking scrapping their new attempts. They're like, wait, we might want to actually be careful about how we spend this last token.
Yep. I don't have much hope that they'll do any better, but at least it must have been truly bad if they couldn't even show it. Max Matson says, have you seen the 9th configuration? I have not, I'm afraid.
Nope.
Mark of Reality says, Ahsoka fake critics. He Vadered. It's insulting as to how dumb their propaganda is. Do they think normally intelligent people are buying this drivel?
I don't even know what the fucking fate of Ahsoka is as a piece of media in human history. Like, what added nothing? No one cared about it. Would it even end up on any kind of physical thing? Probably not. It'll be on a streaming service nobody will watch. People I could see rewatching Clone Wars and Rebels or whatever, but will you ever rewatch Ahsoka, talk about it? Will it actually get a season 2? I don't see why, other than just... And yeah, the main thing everyone takes away from it is fucking Anakin.
Yep. Was it that they said it's like Star Wars is now just a show or a franchise that just references itself?
Yeah, Star Wars is about Star Wars. It's not about people.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if it'll eventually just get willowed. Like all these shows will just get shuffled off Disney Plus because it's cheaper that way, and they'll just forget that they ever even existed.
I legit want to sit a lot of the main people down and be like, can we talk honestly for a second? You're creating incredibly hollow shit. We know, because you can't lie to some extent. You haven't made a Star Wars movie now in many years. You planned to make one per year. Okay, so we know that things are very wrong.
Yeah.
We know that the numbers are down for Mando. That no one gave a shit about Ahsoka. That Kenobi and Boba Fett have critical acclaim of dead fish. So that's all of Star Wars, and that was your great plan to MCUify it, which, by the way, at this point means kill it, because that's the state of the MCU as well. So please admit to me that you are lost right now. You don't know what the fuck to do. And I'd like to hear it from them. It would be cool.
Yeah. I think they would as well. I think they know behind the scenes how bad this is. They just don't know how to fix it. Axel's Abode says, I really wanted more Punisher episodes when it first ended. Now I'm glad that it did stop. Please don't make it come back and ruin it. You could probably say that about all those Netflix shows.
Yeah.
What a funny time that was in retrospect. When I look back at it now, it's essentially been wiped from existence. But they had this little mini universe of Marvel characters made by a completely different company that was willing to do interesting stuff and take risks. I mean, yeah, some of them were a bit shit, but at its best, it's really good stuff, and it was not afraid to be dark and violent and gritty. That was cool. It's just Marvel will never do that now. They'll just never go down that road, and that's sad.
Have you heard about that? The Reign of the MCU book?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah,
Gary's been reading through it, and apparently there's some incredible golden nuggets in there in terms of just information and bits and bobs about the newest phase, even as well. It's like a tell-all. I wonder if the MCU ever stops, or rather, it just goes into another format again.
The prevailing theory at the moment is that in a few years' time, we're going to get the next Avengers movie, which is going to do a reset. That's going to be their Secret Wars Avengers thing, and that's going to just reboot all of it, or a soft reboot at least. And they're talking about bringing back a lot of the characters that have died. Which
it feels to me like that could be very much a significant public nail in the coffin, the reset in the timeline.
Yeah,
because at least there's a sense right now of, yeah, I may not like a lot of the things that have happened, but it's still built on the times that I did like.
I think the moment you start doing that, you destroy your audience's confidence in anything that you produce going forwards, because they know that it can all just get reset and decanonized yet again. So what's the point in caring?
I'm trying to think of a time where a famous franchise rebooted its timeline entirely and then was hyper successful. Is that anything come to mind for you?
I don't believe it's happened. It certainly didn't work for Star Trek. You know,
well, Terminator have tried like 3 times.
Yep. And every time it gets more confusing, because you almost need a flow chart to understand which movies are meant to be canon now, according to which other film that comes out.
There is something infinitely funny about the fact that people are like, Alien, brilliant, Aliens 2, we'll keep that, and then we'll get rid of the rest. Predator, yep. Predator 2, yeah, we'll keep that, and not the rest. Terminator, yep. Terminator 2, and not the rest.
Yep. Some concepts just don't really need more than 1 or 2 movies. Like, they just don't support it.
I think it would have been safe to say for all 3 of them that one and done was enough. But man, all 3 of them came out with banger sequels. It's like, all right, we'll have them too, but no more.
Albert Nada Retro says Hemsworth isn't coming back, and I don't blame him. That's what I heard. I heard he doesn't want to do this anymore. He's clearly got the Extraction franchise that I think he's trying to build up into something, you know, a bit more memorable, that he's obviously able to star in.
Even that, though, when he completes the 3rd Extraction, I imagine he'll be thinking, like, I wonder how long before I should move on from Extraction 2, you know?
I mean, yeah, probably 3 or so would be enough for him, but, you know, it's a decent little trilogy if he gets that.
Yeah.
I think probably, he won't say this publicly, but, like, his work with Taika Waititi and just seeing that guy absolutely butcher his character must have pissed him off.
Yeah.
He must have thought, like, I'm working my ass off to do this role, to get in shape for it, and this is what you're doing with it, you clown.
Oh well.
Wolfkin says, loved Firefly, hated Serenity. The Reavers were supposed to be terrifying, but then a tiny little girl defeats them easily.
She's like, sometimes I wonder if I should even respond. I'm just like, tiny little girl. Yeah, that's what she was. That's what River was. That's all she was. You know, it's Joss Whedon. He doesn't do tiny girl wins without giving her shit tons of supernatural shit. Obviously, I haven't seen Firefly or Serenity in some time, but I remember thinking that we were incredibly lucky to get Serenity to seal off the story, sort of thing. Give it a strong ending. Did you ever see
it? Never really watched Firefly, I'm afraid.
Oh, you should give that a shot, because it's only the 1 season.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about it. Nobody seems to have a bad thing to say about Firefly, and it seems to have gone down in history as one of those, like, oh, what ifs? If only they'd got more seasons, if only it's...
What's kind of funny is, you know, Chiwetel Ejiofor, I think that's how you say his name. Like, my favorite role that he's ever played is probably in Serenity. He's the, dare I say, the enforcer of the bad guys in that. He plays it brilliantly. And then,
he must have been young at the time. You're talking like 20 odd years ago.
Yeah. And of course, you got Nathan Fillion throughout. I mean, I just, you know, the cast is brilliant for Firefly. Got really charismatic actors in there. And yeah, Serenity's just the film that sort of closes off the story because they didn't get any more, which still drove fans nuts. But to be fair, yeah, I haven't heard many people say they didn't like Serenity, but I guess there are people out there who don't. Fair enough.
Intelligent Crayon Eater says you should have Valiant Renegade for the open bar after Disney's November 8th earnings call to do the breakdown and analysis. Yeah, he does a lot of that stuff. He's quite knowledgeable about it, I guess. Axe9 says Kang Lean Kennedy. There you go. That's all the Kang jokes. Jordan McCool says, evening, ma'am, Jensen drinker. Could have built up Kang from a low-tier villain to a universal threat, similar to Spot from the Spider-Verse, showing the struggle and what he has to go through throughout the phase. That would have been an interesting take. But no, it's better to build him up as a terrifying threat by just telling the audience that he is, and then showing the exact opposite and having him getting his ass kicked by everyone. So, yeah, it's a bold strategy, Cotton, but let's see if it pays off for them. Hikitsun Red says, Chris brought up Lost. Shows like Lost and Heroes were worth watching when they aired because they took chances, for better or worse, but they took them. They did, I suppose.
I'm 50-50 on that statement because I remember really liking Lost season 1, and then I guess you could say they took chances in season 2 and 3 and 4, and they got fucking weird and crazy and destroyed the whole show. Lost, I guess you could say the Hatch storyline was a gamble and it paid off. That's one that people kind of liked, but going forward, they went crazier and crazier to the point where time travel happened, and I think that they went too far.
That was the jumping the shark moment when the time travel happened, I think, for most of us.
I was so surprised they'd involved time travel at all. I was like, holy shit, okay. It's just synonymous with going crazy. Don't do that.
Yeah. Social Morlock says, Dear Drinker, hope the vacation was great. Is it true there's nary an animal alive that can outrun a greased Scotsman? That is very true, yeah, especially if it's in an air conditioning vent. Also, your opinion on famous grouse, good Scotch or fit only for American consumption? Cheers. Yeah, it's for Americans only. That's cheap, shitty, blended stuff. Yeah, famous grouse is not good. Patient Elijah says, Hey Drinker, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate each of the 3 Tomb Raider games from the latest reboot trilogy? Okay, first one, probably 8. Second one, 6. And then the third one, probably a 3. Third one was garbage. So yeah, the first one, I thought it showed promise. You know, I kind of liked the new portrayal of Lara initially. I was like, okay, this is a good way to introduce us to the character, but you got to build on her now. You got to have her become something more, and they never do. And it pissed me off no end. By the third one, I was just like, oh, fuck off. Stop with your crying, I'm a helpless, innocent civilian in all of this. But like at the same time, she's mowing down enemies by the dozens with a machine gun. Like, literally a minute later, it's not Lara from Tomb Raider anymore. Mick Hawk says, I want Chris America to come back one day. Is that because he was wearing the big American flag in Houston? It looked great, actually. Suntan Lotion says, you'd think with all of these multiverses, there would be one of them with good writing at least. That would have been nice, yeah. Sadly not. Lover of Green says, Hail Chris, in an Nerdrotic stream, he said that Hollywood is still spending 30% of their budget on Fauci protocols. If they were smart, they'd drop it and save money, but they are the same geniuses who greenlit all of the Disney Plus garbage. I don't know if they still have to follow COVID protocols or not, to be honest. It's a bit strange now, but maybe they do. But yeah, that from people that I've spoken to, that certainly was at the time when you were still having to mask up and stuff when you were doing production. It was adding about 25% onto the budget. That was what I was told. Just the amount of extra time it takes to do things and all the testing that has to be done. That one guy says, once the distribution system changes, how long can Hollywood survive, assuming that it does change? Additionally, will AI help smaller studios and creators get their works to the public? In what way would AI help with that? Like, you still need to film it and so on. Are you talking about having computer-generated performances?
Maybe.
Not sure about that. How long can Hollywood survive if the distribution system changes? I mean, this is what we're kind of seeing now, I suppose. Like, platforms like YouTube allow you to release movies to essentially an unlimited audience. It's just a question of like getting them noticed. So the potential for that is enormous. It's just a question of like, I don't know how Hollywood could even really compete with it, given how they actually have to make movies.
Yeah.
Corp Neo says Hollywood is government, but artists need trenches. Fair play. Big Killer says, I hope Gina Carano is the evil queen in Bent Key. Griefed-ish says, replace evil patriarchy with an evil matriarchy. What was that a reference to again? I'm not sure.
Trying to think of, would it be the Robin Hood or something? Or?
Oh, it could have been, yeah. Jesse George says, hey, Drinker, where will your movie be available for purchase when it comes out? It shouldn't really be for purchase. It's just going to get released on my YouTube channel, so you can just watch it. You don't have to buy it.
Yeah.
That'll probably be in January when it's all good to go. Garrett Hayden says, I've been trying to draft scenes only to realize everything I do has ramifications in every aspect. It's also characters accomplishing goals in the moment. It's fun, but oh boy, it's also challenging. Well, there's the essence of writing a script with integrity. Things that happen here have repercussions 50 pages later on. That's the difficulty of writing a script or a novel or anything like that, really, any storytelling. Yeah. But if you've got the ability to balance it all and make it stay consistent, then you've got the basis of a good script. Sean Calloway says, I heard Marvel is going to rename Daredevil Matt Matlock. Do it. I'd love it. Peter Wozniak says, I raised a glass of African wine from Etosha in Namibia. Here on vacation, temperature is finally below 30 degrees Celsius at 11 p.m. at night, and even the Lions know that the MCU is shit. Cheers. 30 degrees, man. At 11 o'clock at night. It's pretty tough going. John Hansen says, hey, Drinker, big fan here. Did you see the upcoming new South Park episode preview? Yeah, Into the Pandaverse. You guys should watch the trailer. It tackles rebooting shows from modern audiences. Kenny is Sabine. It's spot on. Yeah, that's they're going to go in hard on all this stuff, and I fucking applaud them for doing it.
It'll be fun, yeah.
Beard says, I'm about 40 minutes behind, but Baggage said that something that I've heard this way. When the good people jump ship, you should too. I guess that's a reference to the MCU, and it's pretty true. Intelligent Crayon Eater X also is appropriating African American culture, as he's Canadian and black people in Canada have different experiences with police, ghettos, etc. I don't know. Since I'm not Canadian, I can't really verify. Ashen says, recently I was thinking of a good example of a modern-day strong female character, and Gwendolyn Christie's performance as Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones came to mind. What are your opinions? Yeah, I mean, like, Brienne of Tarth is very physically strong, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, like, in the sense of her character, like, she's got this extremely strong sense of loyalty and a sense of duty. Kind of blinds her a little bit. Like the fight where she has with the Hound always felt slightly manufactured. They really should have been able to talk their way out of that one.
I feel like, for me, like, I don't think about that as what I think about with Brienne, but she, I think part of his story, right, is that she was like the ugly girl, but she was always, I think it was Renly was always kind to her, and so she always wanted to be his soldier, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's it's a neat story.
Platonic Guardian says the creator was original but disappointing. The cinematography was great, just more Cinerama than IMAX. The script was straight up anti-human. Have you seen the creator yet?
No, but after Freeing Capital O's breakdown of it, I don't think I'll be watching that anytime soon.
Yeah, it was a shame because it's amazing what they were able to do with an $80 million budget. And it's nice to see original sci-fi movies getting made. It's just not a particularly great example of it.
Well, I saw there was a viral tweet that was like, you motherfuckers constantly complaining we need a new original sci-fi and you don't even support the one that comes out. there was another viral quote tweet. It said, "It would be nice if those original sci-fis were well written."
Yeah,
it's like, oof.
That is the problem right there. It's like you can't just support it because it's not a Marvel movie or a sequel or whatever. It's like it has to be worth supporting. My Vinyl Morpheus says recently started watching a lot of older movies and found a real gem called The Ninth Configuration. Where is this all this Ninth Configuration stuff coming from? The less you know going in, the better. I forgot that movies used to make me feel things. Seems like we have to watch this movie. Torrin says, Drinker, Larry Correa, author of MHI and Son of the Black Sword series, would be a great guest on Open Bar. Ricky can put you in contact if you want. Thanks for the recommendation. Contrarian says, but guys, Captain Marvel is the key to everything. This film is made for modern audiences. It's crazy how little modern audiences actually are. Yeah, it is that, isn't it? They just don't support it. Demon Dog says, speaking of independent media, you should check out the pilot for a new animated series called The Amazing Digital Circus that just came out. It's a dark comedy inspired by I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Ah, okay. I've read the book. I think they made a game of that as well, way back in the day, like back in the 90s. I think they gave it a slightly more optimistic ending than the book, though, which was brutal. Jay Fraser says, is anyone going to play Alan Wake 2? I'm not.
I am.
Are you excited, Muller?
I'm. It's like I got nothing. I'm going in and I'm going to take it for what it is. I quite like the first one. I don't think I considered it like a great game or anything. But it's fun, and there's the aspect of it being like meta, being written as it's being played. That the main character is a writer who's writing horror. It's all very Stephen King inspired, as well as other aspects. I don't know. It should be fun. That's what I'm hoping for, to have fun.
Well, it's not too much to ask usually. Slate King says there was an episode of Opie and Anthony where they spoke to Donald Rumsfeld. Louis C.K. called him a lizard 10 times. Example of how to prevent hang-up. Okay. That sounds wild. Intelligent Crayon Eater. It's amazing all of the racist black stereotypes that were crammed into the first episode of Robin Hood, but somehow everyone pointing it out are racist. Yeah, it's funny how that works. Patrick Mulligan. I rewatched some old EFAP coverage on Wonder Woman 84. Why did Az think that Pedro Pascal having an Asian child was a problem? Does he not understand biology?
From what I remember, he was saying like he felt like it deserves like a throwaway line, like the whatever wife he had or whether he's adopted or whatever. Obviously, we just said like it's whatever. It's you just figure that's happening. Whenever you see like
not in it, is she?
No, you don't see the mother. So you just assume that she is whatever race would be required to make the mix make sense. I don't know. I just like I said, I don't really think about it that much. But he different things can stick out to different people, and he was like, just give me a line, give me a throwaway line. Which it's funny because I'll be like sitting there like, please give me a throwaway line for why that laser didn't melt that wall or something.
Mm-hmm. I legit can barely even remember that movie existed.
Max, the character Max, he's like the only one I liked in that film. He just seemed like an actual character, but I don't know if it was on purpose or an accident that he's more interesting to me than the main character.
Oh god, yeah. Block of Wood's more interesting than her.
Oof.
The Mad Capper says, Open Bar 69, plans with Tatiana. Oh, I've got lots of plans with Tatiana, but I can't say them on stream. Leary Bard says, here's my tip for a nice 69 experience, hoping this one will not be ignored, especially considering how meaningful it is. Okay, and then he says no more. I got you. Cartoon Man says, remember Maid Marian and Her Merry Men exists in the 1990s. I vaguely remember that, yeah. Was that a British show?
I don't know. I didn't watch it.
That would have been before your time, Muller.
No.
But I'm an old man.
Plenty of things before my time that I watched.
That's true, yeah. But I don't think this one had a big culture.
This one is way before your time.
Well, it's like there's before your time things that were actually good and made an impact, and I don't think this one really did.
Mm-hmm.
Sonny Close says, oh no, we had this question already. Alien versus Predator 2. 200 Watt Studios says Director X presents Affirmative Action Squad. That sounds quite a cool name, actually.
Mm.
Pyro Ronpa says, congrats on the 69th episode. 69. Thank you. Ultimate Fatty says, Mauler, play Prey, you cabbage.
I've been playing a whole bunch of new games, all right? I just did Sekiro. Prey I'll do at some point. No promises.
Adam Milne says, hey Mauler, as a metal fan, have you heard the song Man Without Fear by Drowning Pool and Rob Zombie from Daredevil live action film 2003-ish?
Oh, if it's in there, I've definitely heard it, yeah. As for them, I recognize those names, as do most. So, yes, I'm pretty sure the answer is yes.
Wailing Gecko says, 69 is a great number. Anyway, cheers and good night, guys. Thank you. Good way to sign off. Vinyl Morpheus says, Muller, I'm curious why you think Dead Space Remake makes the OG obsolete. By all accounts, it's a fine remake, but I think every writing change made the characters less interesting. I'd argue that Hammond was outright ruined.
Ruined. I wouldn't go as far as ruined. I think we ended up concluding that Hammond was better in the original, but that it's like it would be hyperbolic to say it's a complete replacement, but that it's close to it. Mechanically speaking, it's just all upgrades. The world has been upgraded. The graphics are obviously upgraded. There's a story edits that are upgrades. There's a more, I think, there's a reveal that's really cool in the remake that they managed to pull out of the original. It wasn't even there. It's there may be more or less holes. I haven't done like a deep dive into it, but yeah, it just and this came from me, Fringy, and Rags. We were all heavy into Dead Space when that came out, and all three of us concluded, unlike the Resident Evil 4 remake, that the Dead Space remake kind of replaces the OG one. Take, for example, if Drinker said, should I play, both of them or one of them? I'd probably be like, probably you get away with just playing the remake. You wouldn't need to play both.
Okay. Well, that's ironically what happened. So, yeah, it's fine. I enjoyed the remake. TGV Monster says, what's your favorite Resident Evil monster? Mine is the Brain Sucker from Resident Evil 3. For me, I think it's a tie between the Chimeras from Resident Evil 1, those things in the power maze that like drop down off the ceiling. They freak the shit out of me. And I think it's weird because they're confined to that one tiny area pretty much. But yeah, I just think they're cool, difficult enemies to fight because they're so fast. Either that or Mr. X, maybe from Resident Evil 2. I always found him way more intimidating than Nemesis. Nemesis was just goofy and kind of annoying, like where he just shows up and he's like, stars. And then he's shooting bazookas at you. It's like, this seems daft. But Mr. X was just this silent, intimidating beast, like, vaguely humanoid, but just the way he like thumps after you. I always thought that was more interesting. That'd be my picks. I don't know if you've got any more.
I'm trying to think about it, like design or mechanics or both. Resident Evil bosses, like,
it doesn't have to be a boss. It could just be a generic enemy if you want.
I'm trying to think of what my favorite battles are in 4. Thing is, I kind of like the whole game. I'm trying to think of specific Resident Evil encounters, because even the Resident Evil 7 and 8, you played them, right?
I played them all, yeah.
Yeah. Because I've never been particularly. I'm trying to think of a mechanically engaging, varied. Because it's funny, the ones you mentioned, I haven't actually played against them.
Well, you've played against Mr. X in the Resident Evil 2 remake, I assume.
I played that for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I think I might have encountered Mr. X at some point, maybe, yeah.
Resident Evil 7 was weird, right? Because I feel like all the boss battles, apart from maybe one, they didn't have much in the way of tactics to them. It was pretty much just bullet sponges. Unless I'm remembering wrong.
Well, something I quite like about Resident Evil is that there's usually environmental benefits. There's maybe a big way you can do it, or you can just fucking get their whole health bar down.
Yeah.
It feels rewarding for those who are saving up ammo and stuff.
I do remember in the original Resident Evil 3, right? You've got the final time you fight Nemesis, you've got to try and lure him in front of a big rail cannon, and then push in a couple of power blocks that will allow it to charge up and fire, and then you press the button to fire. So it's all a bunch of stuff that has to happen in sequence while he's chasing you around, and like your bullets don't do anything to him at that point. Like the railgun is the only thing that will kill him, and there's a time limit to it as well because the place is about to get nuked, and it's really tense. And in some ways, it's really unfair because if his pathfinding fucks up, he just won't go into the position you need him to.
You know, I'll go for the Gyarados, the guy who you have to, you know, he can't see you, he can only hear you. You can get him to run into other enemies. You have to shoot him from behind to kill him.
Is that the guy with the chainsaw?
No, he's like Wolverine claws that are really far extended and he can't see. Kind of creepy, and yeah, I'll go with him.
What was the creepiest enemy you ever fought
in Resident Evil?
Yeah, on any of them.
Trying to think of if the game. What's like the top scare I've ever had? That probably he could be one of them. I remember there's a couple of times in the remake they really got the darkness down, you know, and I always found that scarier than most of the enemies, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's gonna happen. So yeah, I mean, we'll probably go with that, sure.
CM Culloch says, Baggage claimed you're whiter than Rachel Zegler and infinitely more likable. Would you be prepared to play the role? Play Snow White? I think she's got more important things to do, I guess. And last one is from Blue Collar Loser. Says, I know this will be on the catch-up stream. Got out of Flower Moon. I have to ask you and Muller, how do you review something without some bias? I was born on a NYS reserve, so this movie hit me harder than I think it will most people. It's a tricky one, I guess.
In some ways, I think it's good that we have biases. For example, like, you know, you've lived a particular experience and that the film's about it. You can then talk about how authentic you think the film portrayed the thing, and that maybe you lay that out as to why, as the chatter just did, as to why something hit them harder than a lot of people might get hit by it. It's like an insight in a way, but then you also need to be careful sometimes when you're just like, this thing is good because it reaffirmed something I think is true or something I experienced too. Yeah. So if you can try and separate yourself and really see it for what it is in terms of execution, right? Like you try and recognize these things about yourself. You can be, because like, you know, it's funny. Like when I first ever saw Terminator, I wasn't biased in favor of it, but now I am. So like I got to be careful when I'm trying to even talk about my favorite things, because like I fucking love them for what they are, and I love going back to them. Just like, well, is there anything wrong with any of these films? That's why we get that question every once in a while. It's like, oh, criticize one of your favorite movies or something like that. It's like, yeah, you just try and check them, but there's nothing wrong with having them, and recognizing them is far more important than not having them or trying to remove them, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so. And like ultimately, your skill as a reviewer comes down to how well you can articulate, one, your biases, and two, your justifications for why you liked or disliked the film. You know, and you're kind of then laying it out for your audience to mull over and chew on. And I think that's a perfectly fine way of doing it. It's an eternal struggle, I suppose, between personal biases and objective reasoning. But anyway, that was the last of the super chats from the other night. So we got all caught up. So that was lovely. Thank you to you guys for joining us for that. Hopefully we've answered all the outstanding questions that you had this evening, and looking forward to doing the next one on Thursday night. So I guess that's when we'll catch you.
Yeah, see you then.
All righty. Well, that's all we got for today. So go away now.
Bye.